I spent years worried that people wouldn't take me seriously as a leadership consultant because creativity is my number one core value, and nobody else was talking about that. I almost hid the thing that makes me who I am as the leader of my business. And I'm guessing some of you are doing the same thing right now. Maybe you're downplaying what makes you different because it doesn't look like what everyone else is doing in your industry. So today I want to talk about creative leadership, why I was afraid to lead with it, and why I don't hide it anymore. So if you've been trying to fit into someone else's version of leadership and it's not working, this one's for you. Hey, I'm Janik, founder of Ripple Effect Leadership, and I work with solo business owners and organizations who want to lead with clarity and build something that actually fits how they think and how they work. So years ago, after I got clear that creativity was my number one core value, I hesitated to actually talk about it publicly. I looked at other leadership consultants and experts, and guess what? None of them were leading with creativity. It was all about strategy, execution, accountability, results, the traditionally serious leadership topics. And I thought, will people even take me seriously as a leadership consultant if creativity is at the center of what I do? I worried I'd be seen as not serious, as not strategic enough, not credible. So for a while, I downplayed it. I talked about systems and frameworks and all the stuff that sounded more professional. And I still do, but back then it was boring. Now I add my own creative flair to make the strategic stuff more interesting. Whether I'm facilitating a full day of strategic planning for an organization, designing slides in Canva for my online workshops, or hosting an in-person event for solo business owners, there's always a creative element to the ripple effect experience. And I build creative hobbies into my work to help when energy dips or I need a reset. But here's the thing, most entrepreneurs feel the same pressure. Maybe you're forcing yourself into systems that don't fit how you think, or hiding parts of yourself to be seen more professional or credible, second-guessing what makes you different because it doesn't match what everyone else is doing. And you end up building a business that feels like wearing someone else's clothes. It technically works, but it doesn't feel right. So here's what I realized about creative leadership. It's not a nice to have, it's essential. Creativity isn't about being artistic, it's about problem solving differently. It's what allows you to innovate instead of staying stuck in we've always done it this way thinking. And here's what creative leadership actually means. It's thinking outside the box when the traditional approach isn't working. It's encouraging new ideas instead of just following the same processes. And for solo entrepreneurs, it's building systems that work for you instead of forcing yourself into someone else's rigid framework. For organizations and teams, it's creating space for people to bring forward new ideas instead of just executing the same processes on repeat. It's encouraging your team to say, here's a different approach we could try instead of shutting down anything that doesn't fit the standard playbook. It's building a culture where innovation matters as much as efficiency. And it's also approaching challenges with curiosity instead of fear, testing, iterating, trying things differently, being willing to say, this isn't working, let's try something else. So let's talk about what creative leadership actually looks like. And I need to say, absolutely, there's value in structure, there's value in consistency. I'm not saying throw all that away, but creative leadership adds something different to the mix. Where some leaders, some traditional leaders might focus on structure and predictability, consistency across the board, maybe following established processes, having best practices that may not fit your reality, or doing things the way they've always been done. I'm so sick of that sentence, seriously. On the other hand, creative leadership focuses on adaptability, innovation, sustainable practices to not burn out, and building something that fits how you actually think and how you work as a solo business owner. Being willing to experiment and adjust, both matter, but creative leadership is what makes you effective in the real world. So let me share some examples of creative leadership in action. Specifically for solo entrepreneurs, this looks like designing your schedule around your energy instead of forcing a 9-to-5 structure that drains you. Using a brain dump system instead of rigid time blocking when your brain doesn't work that way. Building a business model that fits your life instead of the proven formula that doesn't feel right. And for teams and organizations, it looks like creating space for brainstorming instead of just executing the same plan on repeat. Encouraging people to test new approaches instead of sticking to the old playbook. Adapting workflows based on what's actually working instead of what should work. Creativity is not the opposite of strategic. It's what makes leadership effective. Because when you're willing to think differently, solve problems creatively, and build systems that fit how you actually work, that's when things start to click. So here's what happened when I finally stopped hiding my creative side. I realized that the people I serve, solo entrepreneurs and teams, need creative leadership. Solo entrepreneurs are tired of forcing themselves into rigid systems that don't fit. They don't want another course telling them to wake up at 5 a.m. They want permission to build businesses that work for their brains and their lives. And for teams and organizations, they need it just as much. The pandemic fundamentally changed how we work. Hybrid models, remote teams, people demanding flexibility, organizations that are still trying to lead the same way they did in 2019 are struggling. Creative leadership is what helps teams adapt, innovate, and build cultures that actually work for how people want to work now. When I started leading with creativity, when I stopped apologizing for doing things differently, everything changed. I attracted the right clients, people who appreciate creativity instead of fearing it. I built programs and content that actually feel like me. I stopped second-guessing my approach. And so what does this mean for you? If you've been hiding what makes you different, downplaying it because it doesn't fit the mold, here's what I want you to consider. What value or strength are you hiding right now? Maybe it's creativity like me. Maybe it's empathy, humor. I want you to ask yourself, what energizes me that I've been told isn't professional enough? Where am I forcing myself into systems that don't work for how I think? What would my leadership look like if I stopped trying to fit the mold? You can lead from what makes you different and be taken seriously. You can build systems that work for your brain. You can be creative and strategic at the same time. Your difference isn't a flaw to hide. It's your strength. So let me know in the comments, where have you been hiding? If you've been trying to fit into someone else's version of leadership and it's not working, maybe it's time to lead creatively. Thanks for being here. Like and subscribe if this resonated, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, Ripple Makers.